So Record Store Day is once again coming, this time on November 24th, 2023. And I've got my list of top metal and hard rock vinyl that I might want to buy. So in this video, I'll go through those exclusive picks, as well as what also might look good for genre fans in both the US and the UK. Stay tuned. So for those who might not be familiar with Record Store Day, it's a twice-yearly event that's been going on since about 2007. It takes place at participating record stores around the world. For these one-day events, the record labels put out exclusive and early release albums, whether they're reissues with bonus content, never-before-available recordings, picture discs, you name it. To participate, you show up early at the record store, you wait in line, and when the doors open, you'll have access to the RSD selection in some organized fashion, depending on how your local record store handles things. It's a little different from store to store, so it's always a good idea to go to their websites or social media accounts to get more details on specifically what to do. So given that, here are the featured metal and hard rock releases for Record Store Day Black Friday 2023, followed by my top picks from the list, which means I'm first going through the albums I likely don't want, that you might want. I also have a few things to say afterwards about RSD, so you'll probably want to stick around for that as well. First off, for the US and the UK is Death with Individual Thought Patterns. It is an RSD first release, limited to 2,500 copies. This is a remaster of the original mix of the album. It's pressed on white inside of black ice with splatter vinyl. Anyways, I'm not really sure remastering is enough for me to re-buy this album since I already have a 2020 reissue on splattered vinyl. If you want to see and hear about that and the rest of the reissue series, do a search at my channel for Death Reissues 2020 and check those out. As for this one, it would be great for those who don't have the album. I did see that the current variant on Relapse's site is black, so if you want colored vinyl and you don't want to wait for the wide release, then here you go. Next for the US is Kicks with Cool Kids. This is an RSD first release, limited to 1,500 copies. And this is a 40th anniversary reissue of the band's second album, but the first time on metallic silver vinyl, as well as a gatefold cover art exclusive. I have an OG copy of this album, so I don't need a reissue. It's a decent record, though a bit poppier than their more metallic material on the next few albums. Still a good record, but more for the fans. Next up for the US and the UK is Napalm Death with From Enslavement to Obliteration. It is an RSD limited and regional release, limited to 900 copies. So no other information on this release, including a specific vinyl variant. That means that if you want the album before or after RSD, you can easily go to the Earache website and get it, since it's been available there the whole time, in one variant or another. Next for the US and the UK is Skid Row with Beside Ourselves EP. This is an RSD exclusive release, limited to 2,500 copies. The EP was originally released in 1992 and has covers from the Ramones, Kiss, Judas Priest, Rush, and Jimi Hendrix. It'll also be pressed on yellow-black marble vinyl specifically for Record Store Day. So this might be one of those impulse buys for me, if at all, though I'm not planning on getting it really, but, we'll see. Next up for the US is Slaughter to Prevail. This is live in Moscow. It is an RSD first release, limited to 2,500 copies. Brand new live album from the band, recorded at a recent show in Moscow, and pressed on red, silver, black vinyl with heavy splatter. So, not really familiar with this band, so I don't need a live album from them. Basically, it's simple as that. Next for the US and the UK is Steeler with their self-titled debut album. This is an RSD first release, limited to 1,500 copies. So this is the first and only album for this classic trad metal band featuring Ron Keel and Yngwie Malmsteen, this time pressed on clear red vinyl. Funny thing is that RSD had listed the same album last year, so I guess it's here again. At any rate, I own an OG copy of this really great album, so I don't need a reissue. But if you do, you should get this. Next up for the US is Wendy O. Williams with Maggots, The Record. It is an RSD exclusive release, limited to 1,500 copies. So this is a reissue of the album featuring Wendy O and the Plasmatics, and is often considered a part of both discographies. Back then it was touted as a thrash metal opera, making it sound like an old-time radio program, but with thrashy tracks in between the dialogue. Anyways, I had this record as a kid and I really didn't dig it, finding it either didn't measure up to Wendy O's solo material before this or the classic Plasmatics records before this. But who knows, you might feel differently. Next for the US and the UK is Rob Zombie with Lunar Injection Kool-Aid Eclipse Conspiracy Picture Disc. It is an RSD exclusive release limited to 2,200 copies. And as I said, a picture disc, this time of the 2021 Rob Zombie record of the same name, but featuring new artwork. But since I'm not a Rob Zombie fan, I'll be giving this one a hard pass. So I am saying no to quite a bit of what's on this list, as usual these days. However, there are a few releases I'm a little more hopeful of and will perhaps buy on Record Store Day. Possibly. Starting with this title for the US, this is LA Guns with Live in Boston 1989. This is an RSD first release, limited to 1,500 copies. So no vinyl variant listed, but it is coming out on Secret Records, which is interesting seeing as I didn't know that they were still around. Anyways, the US site says that it's a previously unreleased live album featuring the original lineup, which might not be completely true. Deadline Music, a sub-label of Cleopatra, has had a Boston 1989 live record out for this band since 2015, and you can still get it, but this one is a 2 LP set with more tracks, so that's the draw for me. Still, it's a little misleading to say that this show was never released in some form when it was, and still is, so there you go. Next for the US and the UK is Motley Crue with the Too Young to Fall in Love EP. This is an RSD exclusive release, limited to 3,500 copies. So this is an orange-black vinyl reissue of the rare 3-track 12-inch EP, originally released in 1983 and out of print since then. So I'm getting this one because of the variant, but also because I don't have an OG of it, and I'll pretty much grab anything Motley that's connected to the first 2 records, especially Shout at the Devil stuff, which was the case when I snagged the RSD released Helter Skelter picture disc last time around. This is pretty much the same deal, and I'm good with that. And next up for the US is Sacrilege BC with Party with God plus 1985 demo. This is an RSD first release, limited to 1,000 copies. This is the band's debut album, along with demo material, on vinyl together for the very first time. It is a 2 LP set with an etching on side D. Also contains photos from the era. So a band I missed during the classic era, but I did give some of this album a listen, and it seems I now want to get this for the album itself, but also for the demos. So it looks like I'm interested in a few titles from this list, but as you might suspect, I also have a number of complaints. First off, the UK website for RSD gets worse and worse every year. This time around, instead of having individual pages for each release, which never had enough info as it stood, it's now just a downloadable PDF of the titles without any details on the releases whatsoever. Also, no UK exclusive metal releases this year, which is a bummer. As for the overall selection from both, we're seeing more than a couple records that are currently and widely available already, so having them for RSD is somewhat pointless. There are some decent titles here, but I already own some of these and as OG releases, so there's that. But regardless, maybe you're excited about some of these titles. If so, let me know in the comments which ones you're wanting to get, or maybe you've just had it with RSD in general. Let me know that too. Clearly, I've had my gripes, so it's likely you have some of your own as well. Again, Record Store Day will be on November 24th, 2023. And for more information on Record Store Day in general, you should check out the official site, found at recordstoreday.com for the US and recordstoreday.co.uk for the UK. Of course, if this is your first time at my channel, just so you know, my name is Matt. This is the Accusation Network, where each and every week I do videos on classic and modern metal, as well as metal vinyl collecting. If you like the sound of that, definitely give this video a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and share my videos with a few of your friends. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.